Oscar Wilde. The very name conjures images. A dandy in velvet, a figure of elegance and flamboyance. A wit with a rapier tongue, whose words could cut through the pretense of society with surgical precision. A writer of shimmering prose and scandalous plays, whose works continue to dazzle and provoke even today. His life, a whirlwind of brilliance and tragedy, still captivates us. From the heights of fame to the depths of despair, his journey is a testament to the complexities of the human experience. He was a man who dared to live life on his own terms, a rebel who challenged Victorian morality. In an era of rigid social norms, he stood as a beacon of individuality and defiance. And for that, he paid a terrible price. His defiance led to his downfall, a tragic end to a life lived in bold strokes. Wilde's story is not just a biography, it's a narrative that transcends time, offering lessons and reflections for every generation. It's a Greek tragedy in modern dress, filled with hubris, downfall, and the inexorable march of fate. It's about the intoxicating power of fame and how it can elevate and destroy in equal measure. It's about the hypocrisy of society, which lauded him in one breath and condemned him in the next. And ultimately, it's about the resilience of the human spirit, even in the face of crushing defeat. Wilde's ability to endure and create despite his suffering is a powerful reminder of our own potential for resilience. It's a tale, dear reader, that you won't soon forget. A story that lingers in the mind long after the final page is turned. So, let us begin, shall we? Dive into the world of Oscar Wilde and discover the man behind the legend. Oscar Fingal O'Flaherty Wills Wilde, a mouthful of a name for a boy who would become a giant of literature, a name that would echo through the annals of literary history. He was born in Dublin, Ireland in 1854, a city rich in culture and history which would later influence his works. His parents, both prominent figures, instilled in him a love for language and learning from a very young age. His mother, Jane Wilde, was a poet and an ardent Irish nationalist, often reciting her passionate verses at social gatherings. His father, Sir William Wilde, was a renowned eye surgeon, whose medical expertise was well respected across Ireland and beyond. The Wilde household buzzed with intellectual energy, a constant hum of ideas and discussions that shaped young Oscar's mind. It was a fertile ground for young Oscar's imagination, a place where he could explore the vast realms of literature and thought. He devoured books, soaking up knowledge like a sponge, his mind ever hungry for more. He excelled in his studies, first at Portora Royal School, where he was known for his academic brilliance and quick wit. Then later at Trinity College, Dublin, one of the most prestigious institutions of higher learning in Ireland. He was a brilliant classicist, delving deep into the works of ancient Greece and Rome, which would later influence his own writing. He won numerous awards for his scholarship, a testament to his intellectual prowess and dedication. He was destined for great things, his path seemingly paved with accolades and recognition. But even then, his sharp wit and flamboyant personality hinted at a spirit that wouldn't be confined by academia, a spirit that would soon take the literary world by storm. London beckoned, a city teeming with life, culture, and endless possibilities. In 1878, armed with a degree from Oxford and a head full of revolutionary ideas, Wilde arrived in the heart of the British Empire, ready to make his mark. He was ready to conquer the literary world, and conquer he did, with a confidence that was as unshakable as it was captivating. With his sharp wit, his flamboyant style, and his undeniable charisma, Wilde became a fixture in London's vibrant social scene. He published poetry that resonated with the masses. He wrote art criticism that challenged the status quo. He became a champion of aestheticism, a movement that sought to elevate beauty and artistry above all else. This new artistic movement, which emphasized beauty and artistry above all else, became Wilde's mantra, his guiding principle in both life and work. He preached the gospel of art for art's sake, believing that art should exist for its own beauty and not for any moral or utilitarian purpose. He surrounded himself with artists and intellectuals, engaging in deep, thought-provoking conversations that further fueled his creative fire. He became the embodiment of the aesthetic ideal, living his life as a work of art. His fame grew with each passing year, as his works and his persona captivated the public imagination. He was the talk of the town, a subject of endless fascination and admiration. He was Oscar Wilde, the one and only, a literary star whose brilliance continues to shine through the ages. Wilde was not just a writer. He was a performance artist. He crafted a public persona as carefully as one might craft a sonnet. He embraced eccentricity. He became notorious for his velvet jackets, knee breeches, and flowing cravats. He carried a sunflower, a symbol of the aesthetic movement. He spoke in perfectly crafted epigrams, each one designed to shock and amuse. His wit was legendary. He could skewer hypocrisy with a single sentence. He could disarm his critics with a well-placed barb. He became the most quoted man in England. People flocked to his lectures. They lined up to see his plays. He was a celebrity, a cultural icon. But beneath the surface of this carefully constructed persona, a storm was brewing. Section 5. A Dangerous Liaison, The Shadow of Scandal. In 1891, Oscar Wilde met Lord Alfred Douglas, known as Bosie. He was young, handsome, and utterly captivating. Wilde, at the height of his fame and success, fell deeply in love. Their relationship, passionate and tumultuous, would become Wilde's undoing. Bosie was a troubled soul. He was reckless, extravagant, and prone to scandals of his own. His father, the Marquis of Queensberry, despised Wilde and their relationship. He publicly accused Wilde of sodomy, a crime in Victorian England. Wilde, egged on by the impetuous Bosie, made a fatal decision. He sued the Marquis for libel. Section 6. The Picture of Dorian Gray, a triumph marred by controversy. In 1890, amidst this growing storm, Wilde published his only novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray. It was a sensation. The story about a handsome young man who sells his soul for eternal youth and beauty was a masterpiece of Gothic horror and social commentary. Critics raved about its prose, its wit, its sheer audacity. But the novel's themes of hedonism, decadence, and homoeroticism sparked outrage among more conservative readers. It was deemed scandalous, immoral, even dangerous. The novel's success was overshadowed by the growing whispers about Wilde's personal life. The stage was set for a dramatic fall from grace. Section 7. The Crashing Fall, Trials, Imprisonment, and Ruin. The libel trial was a disaster for Wilde. The Marquis of Queensberry produced a string of witnesses. They testified about Wilde's relationships with young men. Letters were read aloud in court. Wilde's private life was laid bare for all to see. The jury found in favor of Queensberry. Wilde was ruined. He was arrested and charged with gross indecency. A second trial followed. This time, the jury found him guilty. He was sentenced to 2 years hard labor. His health, both physical and mental, deteriorated in the brutal conditions of Reading jail. The world that had once celebrated him now turned its back in disgust. Section 8. Exile and Shadows, The Price of Infamy. After his release from prison in 1897, Wilde was a broken man. He was a pariah, shunned by society. His wife Constance divorced him. He was forbidden from seeing his 2 sons. He fled England for France, assuming the name Sebastian Melmoth. He spent his last years wandering Europe, a shadow of his former self. He wrote very little. He lived in poverty and despair. The spark of genius that had once burned so brightly was extinguished. He died alone and impoverished in a cheap Paris hotel room in 1900. He was only 46 years old. Section 9. A Legacy Reclaimed, Wilde's Enduring Brilliance. In the decades following his death, Wilde's reputation began to recover. His works, once considered scandalous, were reassessed as masterpieces. His plays, filled with wit and social commentary, became staples of the stage. His novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, became a classic of Gothic literature. His epigrams, those witty, often cynical observations on life, love, and society, continue to resonate with readers today. He is remembered as a brilliant writer, a fearless social critic, and a martyr to Victorian hypocrisy. He remains an icon of the LGBTQ+ community, a symbol of the struggle for acceptance and equality. Section 10. Justice, though belated, the 2017 pardon. In 2017, more than a century after his conviction, Oscar Wilde was granted a posthumous pardon by the British government. The pardon, which applied to all men convicted under Victorian-era laws that criminalized homosexuality, was a long overdue act of justice. It was a recognition of the injustice that Wilde and countless others suffered. It was a reminder that society's morals and laws are not immutable. They can change. They must change. The pardon was a testament to the enduring power of Wilde's legacy. He is no longer a criminal, but a celebrated figure in literary and cultural history.